Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Company of Heroes 2 Commander's Guide. And this guide is hopefully going to help you decide on whether it's worth spending either money or in-game currency on a specific commander. My goal is to give you a general outlook on that commander's abilities and their strategic value in a multiplayer environment, and maybe some tips on how to make the best use of them. Company of Heroes 2 is one of my favorite games and also one of the best real strategy games of all time. So I remember when I first started playing COH2, it was 3 years ago, and even though there were less commanders back then, the amount was still a bit overwhelming for a newcomer, so that's why I came up with an idea to help new players interested in the game to make the best and well-informed decisions on which commander will suit their playstyle best. So I really hope this guide will help you. First commander I decided to talk about is Recon Support Company. From his description we read it was focused on intelligence and reconnaissance. The company commander relies on his ability to observe enemy movement and react quickly. This agile commander will provide vital enemy intel using forward observers and high altitude recon sweeps, while also being able to swiftly respond with light operational support in the form of M8 Greyhound and airdropped combat groups. Okay, so let's take a closer look at this commander abilities. Okay, so first ability requires one command point. It is called Forward Observers, and it states Rifleman squads now safer while in cover or garrison. So it does cope with the reconnaissance stem of the commander, giving your infantry the ability to spot enemy units from distance. But to be absolutely honest, the ability seems a little bit underwhelming. First of all, the cost itself seems a bit high. Although it's only one command point, this is still only a passive ability that doesn't directly boost your unit's offensive stats in any way. So the other thing is that it's limited to riflemen only, so none of the officer squads nor rear echelons share the bonus. Thirdly, the ability works only if the unit is stationary behind cover or garrison building, so this makes its use very limited to certain situations where you can leapfrog from one cover to another, or from one building to another, and it kind of is, counterproductive to what the US forces are mainly designed to do, meaning to be more dynamic, on the move constantly. So nevertheless, with that being said, it still seems like a viable ability on heavy urban maps or maps with certain buildings where they play a key role. Second ability, I and R Pathfinders, or Intelligence and Reconnaissance Pathfinders, and it requires 2 command points. It costs 210 manpower and takes 6 population capacity. So it says that a squad of INR Pathfinders can be deployed to the battlefield. These Pathfinders are authorized to call down artillery barrage if not for the fact that the squad amounts to 3 men only. This would actually be an excellent unit. It has 4 very useful and well harmonized abilities with the rest of the commander stuff. So for Saris, this is a unit capable of camouflage, which means it can appear invisible to the enemy if remains in cover, not in combat, and without enemies nearby. Second, this unit is able to place a beacon, which makes paratrooper drop more accurate and enables them to replenish their ranks when they're nearby, allowing them to continue fighting and hold a position even if they sustain casualties. And third, the unit can deploy decoy smoke for an artillery barrage at the cost of 20 munitions. So let's face it, this is a really cheap way of forcing your enemy to retreat, and it plays its role perfectly because Fake Artillery is even more useful in Company of Heroes 2, since the ability is so rare that any opponent will most likely get fooled, at least at the first time you use it. Lastly, Pathfinders are able to call down real artillery barrage at the cost of 140 munis, and this is especially great because USF lack in the artillery department, so any kind of indirect fire is very helpful, and it's always worth. So basically, it's always worth calling in Pathfinders. Never. Depending on the map, but yeah, most of the time it's in any scenario due to their immense utility it's worth calling them. So third commander ability is a M8 Greyhound, requiring 3 command points. The description says a Greyhound can be deployed to the battlefield. This fast, lightly armored vehicle is effective against infantry. So basically it costs 280 manpower and 40 fuel, takes 7 population capacity, so it is 60 manpower cheaper than a standard N20 utility car, but it costs twice the fuel. So you can upgrade the unit with armored skirts at the price of 70 munitions, which makes the unit less vulnerable to handheld firearms, but it's still relatively weak to other light vehicles and armored piercing rounds used by MG42 squads. So this unit looks very similar to M20 utility car, but in actuality it has almost 3 times the armor of a M20, and it's equipped with a 37mm turret, able to effectively deal with other light vehicles. So the bread and butter of this unit is the canister shot ability, which at the cost of 50 munition allows you to sometimes decimate clamped up squads with just 1 shot. So this baby is worth buying sometimes just to see the panic in your enemy's eyes when they recognize that it's M8 instead of an M20 incoming, man. Next in line is the Recon sweep, requiring 4 points. According to the description, a Recon plane will do a high altitude sweep of the battlefield, so it basically does what it says. A Recon plane crosses the battlefield once revealing enemy units in wide area around him, and then he disappears. Well, it doesn't circle around the map like the austere Recon plane, it just sweeps once and that's all. The ability itself synergized as well with the next ability, the airdropped combat group, allowing you to use it while the plane reveals the terrain. The ability costs 60 munition, and it seems a little bit underwhelming for what it actually gives you, but there are 2 buts. When it comes down to the ability, first of all, it should require less command points. I reckon 3 or 2, and it should be a bit cheaper as well. It basically mirrors the Luftwaffe Recon sweep ability, and that ability costs like 35 munition or something like that. Last but not least is the airdropped combat group ability, requiring 7 command points. This is the essence of the commander. All of the other abilities were just a build up toward this one. In the description we can read that 2 squads of paratroopers can be paradropped into the battlefield along with an AT gun. Paratroopers are deployed with a random set of equipment. Okay, so the ability costs a horrendous 900 manpower and takes up to 18 population capacity. Although the command points requirement of 7 allows you to use the ability relatively early into the game, there's a considerable lack of logic behind the ability and its cost. So, first off, it forces you to accumulate 900 manpower, which, if you are able to do, means that you are doing really well and are in no need of elite infantry call-ins, so it's always better to save up for the Sherman. On the other hand, so some might notice by now that the ability does not cost any fuel, so maybe it's a sort of Hail Mary to dish out heavy troops and try to turn the tide. Well, wrong again, because if you are in a pinch, that means you are lacking resources in general. Manpower the most. So you wouldn't be able to stash 900 manpower flow in the first place. So let's consider a scenario where you actually are able to gather that staggering amount of resources, and for any reason you found yourself in need of some fast relief. Well, for starters, if you use the ability during a battlefield, the relief won't come that fast. The squad members are dropped consecutively, so it takes them some time to actually arrive on the battlefield. Second, both units get an absolutely random set of weapons, which means that each one of your squads can get either bazookas, Thompsons, or M1919A6 LMG bars. And you have absolutely no control whatsoever over what you get. So the only thing that you can be sure of is that you will get an unmanned AT gun. That's right. It needs to be crewed first. So if for any reason it so happens that you use this ability too close to the enemy, you just gifted the enemy perfectly good AT gun. And believe me, an OKW player will be very grateful to you because their AT guns pretty much suck. Okay, so my overall verdict on this commander is that you can actually skip this one, or at most put him at the back of the line if you really want him. Because, in my opinion, commander abilities need a buff and maybe a little bit of tweaking to balance them with respect to other commanders. The commander has some useful or fun units such as I&R Pathfinders or Greyhound, but it's more of a fun factor and it doesn't bring consistency in a multiplayer environment. So for those and other reasons, this commander is really rarely seen in ranked games. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about this stuff. If you agree, then like this video. If you disagree, then dislike the video. In the comment section, please share on which commander would you like me to do next. Thanks for watching, and until next time. See ya.